the 30-minute how-to guide on open innovation. And today we're going to be talking about how to manage needs within an open innovation environment. Quick introduction, my name is Campbell Lockhart. I work in NineSigma and strategic programs. And prior to this, I have been an open innovation manager within a very large consumer goods company. And I've also had the pleasure of replying to open innovation challenges as a solver. So I'm taking it from basically three different points of view here, and I'm looking forward to this discussion. Today I'm particularly pleased to be joined by Thomas Lackner of Siemens, and I think maybe Thomas could give a few words of an introduction to you can learn of what he's done on open innovation. Over to you, Thomas, for a few minutes.
Thank you, Campbell. It's a pleasure for me to be here. Briefly, I've been in open innovation at Siemens since 6 years. I started my career at Siemens Corporate Technology more than 25 years ago, and during this time I always had jobs and responsibilities in the innovation environment. With this background and experience, I suggested open innovation to our CTO, Hermann Reckford, who then asked me to run the implementation.
So you're certainly the man from Siemens who can give us a lot of information and insights into what's been going on there. Today what I want to do is to look at a program which is going to address how the topics, challenges and problems can be made into good challenges, good candidates for open innovation, and how these can be managed to maximize the benefit. We're going to look at a number of things. Firstly, we'll look at something which maybe appears quite an obvious aspect, is how to ask the right questions, and it's something which is very, very important in open innovation. Following that, we'll be looking at when and how this should be done and the characteristics that perhaps should be considered when looking at a challenge and how to make it into a good open innovation challenge. And finally, something which is again very important is how you match the results to the expectations within the company. Because when you do an open innovation challenge or go out to the outside world, everyone is expecting very, very good results. But first of all, just to get the ball rolling, as they say, or to break the ice, I'd like to just tell a short story which would illustrate about what we're going to be talking about. And this is at the beginning of the 20th century, when the last frontier was in the Antarctic, and the race to reach the South Pole. In this case, there were two competitors. There was Scott, who was a captain in the Royal Navy, who looked on this endeavour as a sign of national prestige, with a contender, a Norwegian called Amundsen, who took it from a very scientific point of view. What's interesting here is that Scott had many resources. He planned from his London office. He was equipped by the company Burberry, whereas Amundsen had very few resources, and he went to Greenland and learned from the indigenous population there how to survive, live, feed in very hostile climates. Scott took horses with him to the Antarctic. Amundsen took dogs. Amundsen got there first and came back alive and healthy, and Scott never returned. I think there's a lesson here which is saying when you're looking at a challenge, it's who you're talking to, the questions you're asking them, but also when you're asking them is very, very, very important. This is a very important part of innovation, and it's why the why, how, and when you should reach out to the external community is critical in driving any innovation program, open or internal. I'm sure that many listeners will recognize something in the story. Immediately I think of Kodak. I think that this is the kind of behavior I've witnessed in a number of companies as I've been working through open innovation. Thomas, hand over to you. Do you see some familiar patterns here? And were you the Amundsen of Siemens?
Campbell, I don't think that I'm the Amundsen of Siemens, but you are right. The Scott Anderson story also tells us something in the innovation context, and we should think about why Amundsen succeeded and Scott not. Obviously, because Anderson used some knowledge which was already available in the world. Let me tell you a short story how I started open innovation within Siemens. And as I already mentioned, in June 2008, I approached the CTO of Siemens, Hermann Reckford, and tried to convince him that Siemens should do more in open innovation environment. And I prepared a few slides, just 10, and one slide contained a story perhaps similar to that story you gave us with Emerson and Scott. And it was a story about Gold Corporation. Gold Corporation, which is a gold mining company based in Ontario. They were almost bankrupt in 2000 because they didn't find enough gold on their own site in Red Lake in Ontario. The CEO, Rob McEwen, initiated an open innovation challenge, provided top secret geological data, around 500 megabyte, via the internet to an external and open community of geologists, mathematicians, military officers, or even consultants. And he awarded the winning solution with more than $500,000 for those party who could find 6 million ounces of gold. And in this contest, more than 1,400 experts from 50 countries participated. There were 2 winning parties, both from Australia. They didn't know each other, and they were 13,000 kilometers away from Ontario, and they never had seen this site in Red Lake. And more than 8 million ounces of gold were found. This story convinced Herman Reckwart, and he asked me to set up the Open Innovation Program for Siemens.
It's a very illustrative example of how, when you look outside, you can solve some very, very difficult things. How did you think this influenced the way the open innovation was actually implemented at Siemens, Thomas?
As usual, we first developed an open innovation framework for Siemens and adapted it to our special needs. So the open innovation approaches in every country they are looking different. Basically, we developed a toolbox of open innovation measures, a toolbox to get fresh ideas and leading edge technologies, both internally and also externally. Because Siemens is a very big company, we have 300,000 or 380,000 employees, and typically we have a huge knowledge. We also have the saying, if Siemens only knew what Siemens knows. And this toolbox consisted of internal and external social media tools, innovative search to find technologies and experts within Siemens where information is hidden in databases, and tools and partners to find leading edge technologies and experts in the global R&D environment. We started then pilot projects with early adopters, I would say, where we looked for stakeholders and business guys. We adapted our tools and approaches to the clear business need of the respective stakeholder. That's a very, very important point. If you are a facilitator role, you should never be brighter than the stakeholders or the business guys. We specified the need together with them. We selected the most suited open innovation approach, and we supported them in the implementation of the open innovation approach. And during this pilot, also it's important to show early success stories and promising results, which fortunately we achieved. And after successful initial pilots, we step by step rolled out the program within our company. In this whole process, the crucial point is really, as you already mentioned also, Campbell, is to understand the need of a business unit and to find the best suited open innovation path.
Yeah, it's a great example. What I'm hearing is that this toolbox is extraordinarily important to develop an open innovation in Siemens, and I think in probably in most companies when they're doing it at a very high level, it's not just one process, but it's a whole suite of processes which then they adapt to what they're actually looking for. So what you're saying also here is that the identification of who you want to connect to is critical before you start out on any innovation journey, whether it's internal or external. And I really agree with you there, because time and time again, I've seen when we've been doing open innovation challenges and reaching out, that it's by reaching out to the right crowd and getting there at the right time and asking them the right questions, that this is a very, very high priority key for success. And I think that's really what was the difference between Scott and Amundsen, because Amundsen knew when and where and how to go out and find that information. Thomas, do you think there are some common rules or topics that are most adapted for open innovation? For example, I was wondering, do you think there's a common denominator that you could apply to consumer, healthcare, and what you do at Siemens? Because they seem to be very, very different industries, and I'm wondering maybe you have to approach these in a different way. Do you think there's anything common in there that you'd like to discuss?
Yes, Campbell. I think there is at least one common denominator, and that is you definitely should look outside or inside your own company. If you are a big corporation, inside, of course, and you will learn a lot. That's my basic experience, which I now have since 6 or 7 years. With respect to industries, however, there are, of course, big differences if you look at approaches or topics which are suited for open innovation. And I would like to give you 2 very different examples where we used open innovation to identify technologies at universities, startups, or even big corporations, because also big corporations take part in this game. One was the example of our business unit, Water Technologies. They wanted to find new materials to remove contaminants of water and wastewater. And these were typically metals like copper, selenium, or others. And they already had their own solution, but they were looking for innovative materials which could go beyond their existing solution. And they tried to find cost-effective solutions, and also where the removal of these contaminants was very fast. Only these guys, these experts, could describe in detail their request, and for example, exactly the particle size they were thinking of, and also the time. For example, that in 90% of particles should be removed within less than 10 minutes. I would never had this specification in my mind. And the response was really overwhelming. We got 70 solutions. A Siemens team was afterwards formed who assessed the proposals. 8 proposals were shortlisted and NDAs signed. This example demonstrates the search for innovative technologies to improve an existing product. The second example came from the business unit Postal Automation. They are active in postal automation solutions and wanted to enter a new market segment in logistics. One serious problem they identified there was unloading of trucks. They specified the problem, and for example, it was unloading of more than 3,000 packages per hour with a variety of size and stiffness and so on. They promised funding of, please listen, 10 million euro, a very high figure. Yeah. And since they knew that if they found an innovative solution, then they could enter a very, very attractive market segment. And in this last example, you see we started at the front end of an innovation process to get options and to figure out existing solutions or even innovative approaches to a given problem, and the given problem was the bottleneck in this logistics chain.
Yeah, really great examples, Thomas. Both looking at it from an upstream and a downstream point of view, I think that's very, very interesting. Also, what I see is that you were working with processes. You were putting teams together to reply. You were crafting the needs in a way which was then able to reach out to the right communities yet again. And I think you're showing it by doing this when you have these processes, and also when you show that there's a value there by a prize like $10 million euros is a very, very significant prize. You're showing to the outside world that this is an important problem. But listen to that. Another thing comes to mind. I think what I see very often is that topics sometimes fall into what you could call the open innovation basket, not because they're specifically identified. These two examples you're given were specifically identified because Siemens really knew what they were doing there. But sometimes the topics will fall into the open innovation basket by default because they've got to the end of a certain logic and no one has found the solution, and then it becomes a last resort, a kind of quest for a holy grail, as they say in open innovation. When we look at the value chain, Thomas, what I see is you position both of these projects in two different parts of the value chain, and what we find very, very often that topics that are very often instigated at the end of a process in the value chain when everything has been tried. And I think that open innovation should be applied much, much earlier in the process, right at the beginning, when companies are starting projects and are in a process of gathering as much information, as many options as possible to allow them to make decisions on where to put scarce resources and where to put their efforts in the future. I think this way of using open innovation is a great way of almost like clearing the woods, and the two examples you gave there are very, very similar to that. You're clearing the woods, you're showing where to go, and you're giving clear signs to the external world. And as you said, it already allows you to identify what you know inside and outside, and it gives you a really good foundation. So using this way of using open innovation to craft the need really allows you to give a fantastic foundation to go forward, as long as it's done at the right time. And I think it's got to be done at a very early stage. When I think about defining an open innovation challenge, there's a number of things which come to mind for me. And that is, and maybe you could comment on this later, Thomas, things which are important in a challenge is, does the topic have a clear owner? If you don't have a clear owner, I think that it doesn't have anyone who's going to be pushing it. Has the topic been worked on for a long time? Often, if a topic has been flogged to death, it's not necessarily a good example for open innovation because there's too much history behind it, too much bias. Another aspect is, if they actually identify a solution, and your example of the 10 million prize is really, really good for that. If we identify a solution, is there a budget and resources to do this? Sometimes you find the solution, but at the end of the day, the companies just don't have the means to actually implement their solution. And another one, what happens if we solve it? And even perhaps more important, what happens if we do not solve it? And all these questions, I think, are questions which are very important to ask at the very beginning when you're crafting a need for open innovation. Do you have anything you'd like to add there, or any comments about what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, there are a lot of questions you can challenge a business unit as a facilitator, and that was my role. Mm-hmm. But I think, first of all, you have to consider the specific open innovation approach you want to pursue, and then you can discuss other items like budget, timing, internal resources, or others, since they depend on each other. So a successful open innovation approach consists of, from my point of view, of two parts, and that was essential to our program within Siemens. First, of finding innovative and business-relevant ideas and promoting them in a well-designed innovation funnel. And second, finding leading-edge technologies for a given need. And for finding ideas, the situation changed considerably within the last 5-8 years due to the rise of the Internet 2.0, where everybody can participate and formulate something in Internet and not only read, and where you can run idea contests, blogs, discussion forums, and so on. And you can use the wisdom of the crowd to get innovative ideas, to improve and challenge these ideas within this crowd, and to award the best ideas. And we at Siemens are using this kind of idea management. We call it co-ideation, both internally and externally. And to give you an example, we have run approximately 10, 11 idea contests since 2008, most of them internally. And one essential part is also motivation of employees, challenging employees who then can take part actively on an innovation challenge. And when it comes to technology, then there are two important approaches from my point of view right now. One is to find experts or technologies for a given problem. Typically, after you have identified the company or the university, you want then to run a joint project or license an existing technology, something like this. But a second approach is a kind of competition, which is becoming more and more important. And you state there publicly a problem, like in our Gold Corporation case, but there are other cases like Netflix and so on. And you provide data. Typically, this call for proposals takes several weeks, but up to 2 years. And you just communicate in a certain leaderboard how close the competitors are to having solved the given problem. Mm-hmm. And the winner then gets hopefully a good prize.
Yeah.
And you can see this kind of competition on special data mining platforms becoming more and more visible, like on Kaggle or GrabCAD. And typically, finding an algorithm for a given problem could be a good example.
Yeah, these are really interesting ways of open innovation, Thomas. And what I think you're saying here is that it's open innovation, which 10, 15 years ago was very much based on problem solving, is now being furnished with a complete suite of very, very, very sophisticated tools which allow you to reach out to these communities. And just to come back to the point right at the beginning, it's reaching out to the right community, which is also a very, very important part in there. Because if you don't hit the right community, you're not going to get the right people who are replying or even thinking about your problem. I think your examples are great. I'd just like to turn now to the final point in our very, very short program, and that is the difficult question of aligning open innovation challenges with expectations. And this is a very difficult thing to do. When I say expectations, in this case, there's obviously expectations when you do a challenge or you reach out to the outside world, or you do a competition or whatever. You're expecting a certain result. But there's another level of expectations which comes from the top management. And when top management engage on a program, and I'm sure you were confronted with this type of situation in Siemens, when they engage in a program of open innovation, they have obviously got expectations because they're going to be spending money, time, resources on that. And sometimes these expectations are not quite aligned to what was actually agreed on at the beginning. What I'm seeing more and more is that open innovation is being perceived in a very, very different way now, where the top management is coming back and they're asking a question which is very difficult to answer. And this question is, so where's my new product? And when I hear that, I think that it is perhaps because there's been a misalignment, and maybe they're missing the point about what open innovation is about. And there's an aspect of training and formation and communication which has to be done up to the top management so they understand what is actually really going on within an open innovation program. Sometimes, maybe I'm being a bit hard and a bit presumptuous in this, but sometimes I feel there's a misalignment here. And maybe it's because very often when a project is embarked upon, then the wrong questions are asked, the wrong people are asked at the wrong time, which means that the expectations are guided towards the wrong place, and you have this example of top management asking, so where's my new product? Again, coming back to what I was saying about positioning it at the right stage of the cycle, if open innovation is positioned right at the beginning of a cycle, then I think you can really align the expectations almost towards that question of where's my new product. But it's also a lot more about where's my new idea, where's my new process, where's my new technology, or where's my new concept, or where's my new way of looking at something, which then leads to perhaps a new product. So in that, point I want to make here is that open innovation has to be part of a global innovation program. And if it's applied as a last resort, then very, very often we have a problem of misalignment of expectations. And there you find that there's a lot of people who are very, very disappointed in the results. get any idea about that? In Siemens, were you confronted with this thing? So where's my new product? Is this how Siemens looked on open innovation? I think from what you've been telling us earlier, that this wasn't really quite the driver behind open innovation in Siemens.
Yeah, well, actually, I'm all the time confronted with managing expectation, and your example are if the expectation is getting a new product, then I believe it's the wrong expectation. And we have a variety of different open innovation approaches, and the outcome depends on the approach one has chosen. And perhaps there is an outcome or a special approach where you can identify getting a new product, but it's seldom, and you should think a little bit more open.
Yeah.
And let me give you an example on expectation, how I react to wrong expectations of the management. As already managed at the beginning, we at Siemens are running co-ideation idea contests, simply speaking. 2 years ago, we had an internal contest on sustainability, and we invited all employees from Siemens to participate and contribute their ideas how we could improve in this sustainability domain. And we got more than 800 very good ideas. 3,000 employees, 3,000 actively participated, and 40,000 employees took part in this contest. In my point of view, this contest was a big success. However, I was asked by top management if there are really new, innovative, and perhaps even disruptive ideas. And keep in mind, I'm not the sustainability expert. I am the guy who is running an open innovation program. My response was very simple and as follows. I don't know if there are really new ideas contributed within this contest, but I know that we collected all ideas from as many employees we could get. And if you as a top manager think about if you as a top manager are not satisfied with the results, you should rather think about the innovation capabilities of your own organization than blame the open innovation approach. The open innovation contest is just a mirror to your organization. And this answer was fully accepted.
I think it's a very interesting answer. And I think to have it accepted is an amazing feat of convincing your top management. Let's go down towards just the end of this 30-minute period. So needs-driven innovation, whether this is internally or externally sourced, is really built, and this is, I think your last example is very much in that, is built on identifying and crafting these needs to ask the right question, but perhaps more importantly to the right crowd. There, you had a fantastic opportunity. You had this very, very large pool of people in Siemens, and you were able to ask them very, very, very good questions. Today, we've seen that if you don't know when and where to find that information, the result can be pretty disastrous. And I think you've given some examples there again, on the upstream and downstream approaches which you have, by asking them at the right time, that you can get very, very high quality results. And it certainly would be better to be Amerstone than Scott, and I think that no one can deny that. But it's not really quite enough. It's aligning open innovation to the corporate strategy, and that requires a really clear and determined path. And it not only involves fulfilling the challenge technically, but also making sure that all the expectations are being met, and that the questions have been framed correctly for those expectations. Again, your example is an excellent example of how you approach this. These will allow you to use the open innovation or the open innovation toolbox. And again, this example of the toolbox, and I fully adhere to this approach, that open innovation or innovation is not just one process, it's a complete range of processes. And one of the arts of an open innovation manager is to know which of these tools you use at the right time and the results you're going to look for it. So just to wind up, I would like to thank Thomas very, very heartily for having shared with us what he's done at Siemens. I think it's a very, very extraordinary good opportunity for us to hear this, and how he's integrated the need management into the innovation program. And perhaps this will allow people who are listening to this and people who are listening to it in the future on video, and how Siemens has done this and how they can compare what they're doing in their companies and how they can be inspired by what Siemens have done in this area. So just to round up, I'd like to thank everyone for listening. And please, if you have any questions or points or anything you'd like to discuss or debate, then please be ready to contact Thomas directly on the email which is on the screen just now, or myself, NineSigma, and we'll be very, very happy to discuss with you. So thank you again for your time. Have a great day. And hopefully you'll be on our next webinar in a few weeks. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you for your time. Bye-bye.